am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Balls. Prepare for Prattalion.
Spider Knight?
Alas, friend Spider-Man, by what sorcery doth small ceiling torch shine forth?
It's called a light bulb.
Welcome to Prattalion. I'm your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan. And in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to another edition of Spider Knights of the Round Table, where me and my guests will discuss a much-loved subject in depth in a roundtable format. And joining me today are my co-stars from Death by Pies, Westernized, Hannah Hobley and Nathan Smith, and we are going to go try digging for some gold while looking at the contemporary Western, Meek's Cutoff. Hello, guys. Welcome back.
Hi, Dan.
Hello, world.
Thanks for having me back again.
Yes.
You know what? This is my first three-way podcast that I've ever had, so...
We'll be gentle with you, Dan. Don't worry.
You guys are pulling double duty. I do thank you for coming back on. And you guys know your westerns, you know your stuff, because we all did our research for Nathan's play, which looked at examined Trump's America through the lens of a western, and it was a very much a spoofy kind of comedy take, very very Blazing Saddles airplane type play, which was a lot of fun and got a lot of good press. And we did it in a car park in the middle of Manchester, very, very, and it felt like the Old West. And there was a lot of kind of hard goings in this film that kind of remind me of putting up our little canopy tent. I don't know if you recall the tough times we had down in that windy car park in Manchester.
Oh, it was like being on the plains, wasn't it? Setting up that big marquee and then taking it down in a storm of wind.
Tragically, we had to cancel the final show because it was the elements just destroyed, our chances of surviving in the Northwest, if you will. Anyway, let's move on and let's talk about this contemporary Western. So I've been looking at all the different kind of subgenres that the Western kind of genre has. So we've looked at revisionist Westerns, I've looked at a comic book Western, I've looked at spaghetti Westerns. So I wanted to do something more kind of modern with modern ideas, modern themes, not a contemporary setting, still the classic West, but with kind of ideas. And so I thought, I'd heard a lot of great reviews about this film. I'd heard a lot of, it's a certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. So I thought, yeah, this might be the one. So we went for Meek's Cutoff directed by Kelly Reichardt. That's how I'm going to say it. Starring Michelle Williams, Bruce Greenwood, and Paul Dano. It's basically about a group of travelers who are traveling through the Wild West and want to get to where they're going. And they're being led by a man called Stephen Meek, who may or may not know exactly where they're going, and they may be a little off course by 3 or 4 weeks, I believe. So they're running out of supplies, running out of food. Everything's kind of going to pot. So I think that's the best kind of sum up of the plot I can give, I think. What did you guys think of the film?
Well, it was very well shot. It was a visual treat, wasn't it?
What I liked about that was it was a really, it was kind of a tipping the hat to those early sort of Sergio Leone films like Once Upon a Time in the West and like The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, that you've kind of got these long shots. Because if you watch any of those Sergio Leone films, it takes so long to get started. I think it's the start of Once Upon a Time in the West, where the first shot is about 15 minutes before anything. It's just like it's the shot of a little barn, and there's a little spinny thing going round and round and round. And
the tumbleweed.
Yeah, and so I appreciated that because I like that sort of slow burner. But after doing some research on the director, she's very minimalistic. And you can tell by the film that it's kind of got that minimalistic feel to it. Yeah. I love weird camera shots. Like, I'm a big David Lynch fan, so I like it when there is a camera far away in a weird position and you can only see the back of their head.
But at the same time, the attention to detail with some of the shots was really nice. Like, you know, when she was washing the pot and she was by the stream, like knelt down on a rock, scrubbing at this, and then you'd cut to another task, but these were tasks that they had to do just to kind of keep afloat, really.
I like the sort of the themes of, like, in Western Eyes, we had this whole thing about manifest destiny. The belief that that Americans should go forth west and take it because it is their right as Americans to take the land. And I liked that kind of idea of this, you know, group of people, these families going west, you know, to find new lives. Is it Oregon they're heading towards, the Pacific Northwest?
I believe so. I'm not sure if they ever specify, but I think that maybe that's
Oregon Trail at the start, doesn't it? It says like the Oregon Trail.
Yeah, so maybe they are on the way to Oregon. I must have missed that when watching it, but I thought that the idea was that they didn't really say that. It was kind of like it didn't really matter where they were going. It was more the journey itself than the destination. The journey was hard going. It was difficult, you know, and I think it almost didn't matter to some degree where exactly they were heading. That was just me, but yeah, it may well be Oregon. But yeah, I think Hannah's right. I think it does look really nice. It's very well presented. The locales are very interesting, very different, all very unique. All these different types of kind of grassy, then you've got the kind of rocky terrain and all that other stuff. It's shot in a slightly narrow kind of aspect ratio. So it's not the usual kind of classic widescreen that we're used to. It's shot in the way that those kind of classic westerns would have been shot within that frame. So it almost makes like a little kind of cube in the middle of the screen while it's being presented. So it kind of harkens back, and there's tips of the hat to that kind of western genre and those classic movies. And then it kind of carries on. But yeah, I did enjoy the kind of the cinematography, but I think the director was much more interested in the what was happening to the characters and what was happening to them personally, and with their kind of like what's happening to them and their emotional journey, rather than the landscape as much. But the shots of the landscape are still very nice.
She kept it as true to life as possible. So some of the scenes, it was so dark, you were squinting to really see what was happening. Like I could hear. And there was a faint shot of, I'm assuming they were grinding up the wheat to make flour at some point. But it didn't then cut to her making bread. It was actually the next night, I think, when it showed her then making the bread out of the flour she'd made the night before.
Yeah.
So it was taking kind of, she was keeping it, you know, shot-wise. If it was pitch black and they were having a conversation, we couldn't see the conversation. We could just hear it. But then that's just how it was for them. It's almost just seeing what it was like through their eyes at the time.
It reminded me of a character development piece, mostly, of this idea of them going and then trusting this Native American, which they then capture. Yes. To take them towards water, and you're never quite sure what this Native American's motives are, and you see some of the wives and husbands changing their opinions on him, which I assume is a comment of people of that time, with major genocide of the Native American people.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of kind of comment on, like, Stephen Meek is this like brash, overconfident, foolhardy mansplainer, if you will. He basically is like, he basically says, I know where I'm going, I know what I'm doing, don't you question me, little lady. And that's him. And that's the kind of, I feel he becomes the villain of the piece, but I do feel it's a bit convenient that he is also that and kind of a racist as well. that he becomes that is like he's the point of reference for these two very modern, well, not modern evils, but evils that we look at now as evil. But back in the day, we wouldn't have seen that. And his kind of arrogance and bravado is actually leading them into danger. And the whole group is like, I don't know about this guy. We're not sure. Is he just a bit stupid, or does he believe is he leading us somewhere to kill us? But then is the Native American leading us to be killed by his tribe or something like that? But I can see what they were trying to do. But I thought, for me, what I've been talking about this whole month with everybody else is this moral ambiguity within the West, and everybody has it. Everyone is just trying to survive, and they will do what they have to do, and they will justify their actions to survive. And I feel like just making him the villain of the piece was a little too easy, a little too convenient for me. But I don't know what you guys think about that.
That's the best thing about sort of like the West. Like if you watch something like Deadwood, for example, it's all about these characters who at first may appear to be the bad guy or appear to be the good guy, and they switch it so much. I mean, Ian McShane's Al Swearingen, like on the first episode, you're like, that's the bad guy in this show. I know where I stand with him. And then throughout the series, it kind of switches and goes back. And it's a very well written, again, a character piece. And it's the development of these people who you think are going to be good. I mean, the lead guy, Tim Oliphant in it, sort of switches constantly. You think he's a good guy. And then his temper is this thing which constantly keeps getting him into trouble. And I think what I feel Meek's Cutoff missed is that lovely Western plot. That's why we watch Westerns, is because you've got that great sort of, it's a simple plot and it's thrilling and it's old school sort of rivalry and hatred and good versus evil. And I feel as though if Meek's Cutoff was a series, it could have explored it a longer, more detailed period. To tell you what movie it reminds me of, and this is like completely different genre, but have you seen Jarhead?
Yes.
With Jake Gyllenhaal, which is a movie about waiting for something, waiting for action, and it never quite comes because they don't fire one single bullet in it. And it has that kind of feel to it that you're waiting for it and it never actually comes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think Jarhead does that idea, because I don't think the director was necessarily going for that in this film. I feel Jarhead, it's very obvious. It's a very kind of obvious allegory. But in this, I felt like I just needed just a little bit more, the inciting incident when they kind of find the Native American, which is like, oh, okay, what's going to happen now? Or where's the tension? What's this going to lead to? That happens like 2/3 into the film. And then as it comes to its conclusion, it's still I was still waiting for things to happen.
It didn't really conclude, did it? It was leading you somewhere and you were waiting for that something to happen, but it didn't go anywhere.
You just wanted Paul Dano to walk around like the side of a mountain and then 15 arrows going to his back.
Now that would have been interesting. But we kind of, and another thing I noticed about the film was that, like, we don't really know what the characters, like, who the characters are. Like, we never get, like, their hopes and dreams, aspirations, or where they've come from, what they've experienced. It's just the journey.
There wasn't much talking in it, really. It was more just the visual, wasn't it? But yeah, there was no backstory. There was no real story of where they were wanting to... What
they were escaping from.
Yeah.
What they were looking to find. But I guess that whole sort of idea of the plains are so empty, and I guess it could be, I'm getting quite theatery here, the whole metaphor of waiting. It's got that whole waiting for Godot there. I could actually feel somebody listening to this rolling their eyes when I said that.
It's all right. Probably just me.
Is that the first time waiting for Godot's been brought up in one of your podcasts?
Well, I'm on 75 episodes now, but I've had a lot of theatrical types on, so probably someone might have mentioned it at least once. Probably Andy. Probably in a negative way. So, like, a lot of people, like a lot of the reviews and things I've read have kind of said this is like a staple of a kind of modern feminist Western. How do we feel about that? Do we feel it kind of encapsulates that and that struggle and how it was back then and how times have changed? And were the characters? Did the characters fit that archetype of what we feel like modern feminism is within the Western context?
Well, Emily, played by the lovely Michelle Williams, was kind of she kept it all together, didn't she? She offered out just a bit of help to the Indian because she needed, to almost like gain a chip. And then she, at the end where she takes control of the situation and she holds the gun.
You got that little Mexican standoff going there.
The standoff. I feel like she really kind of had the balls.
It was subtle sort of power taking without any kind of like, mass gunfire or anything.
She was a clever character. I think that, the strongest mind, and they'd have been buggered without her there, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because really, just by her offering that gesture of her fixing his boot made him feel more at ease. So then you thought, well, maybe he'll do the right thing by them.
And you're never quite sure if the Native American is doing right by them. So I guess there's that whole ambiguous sense of it. Did I want Michelle Williams to start a gunfight with Bruce Greenwood? Definitely. I kind of felt that was kind of needed.
But she verbally stood up to him, didn't she? Because
absolutely
was not standing for his crap.
I guess the modern idea is that you can't take a piece and think, well, it has to have some woman standing up for themselves, killing a load of men to be a piece of modern feminist Western. Obviously, because of the context of everything, it's very rare that you probably get a woman in a position of power at the start of a movie. The only kind of connection or parallel I can run is again, I seem to be just talking more about Deadwood, but like in Deadwood, you've got Calamity Jane in there, and she's wonderful, like such a kind of complex, interesting character. Until I read about it after that, it's only then when I realised that people were referring to it as a piece of modern feminist Western.
Okay.
What do you think?
I think I'm like you, Nathan. I kind of wanted Meek to get shot. I totally get that it was more of a subtle thing, and it's more of that kind of like quiet power. It's like I know what I am, very confident. I know I'm very intelligent. I know what I can do. I know what is required. But this particular situation doesn't necessarily need a forceful hand. It needs like a subtle kind of gesturing or maneuvering to resolve it. And I think that's what she did up until the point where the guns were drawn. That was her, like, at her limit. She goes, right, this is it now. This is my limit. Don't push me any further. You'll see what I'm capable of. But I do, yeah, I appreciate it. But I think I think it was my expectations, what I'd heard about this film. I think I expected a slightly different. I think it was a more like kind of yeehaw type kind of feminist Western as I was expecting. But like you said, it's a very minimalist film. And I think the messages have to be, within that context, have to be a lot more subtle and told in a very different way. But yeah, I think it is successful in that regard. But I felt
there's very subtle power shifts, isn't there, throughout? Because it kind of starts with the men saying this is the way we're going, this is the route we're going, and then by the end of it, it's kind of becomes a bit more of a democracy.
I agree. I think because a lot of the I think one of my issues with the film as well is there is a lot of this tension throughout the film. There's a lot of, are we going to die? Are we going to run out of water? Are we going to run out of food? Oh no, the carriage is turned over. Oh, my little boy's run off. There's all this kind of tension between Meek and everybody, and Meek comments on it, and they have that conversation about women being agents of chaos and men being agents of destruction, and things like that. But the tension never really. I don't think there's ever really a breaking point to any of this tension. It never really feels like it's ever like, now it explodes. Now all the tension boils over. There's the standoff, but again, I feel like that's coming a bit too late in the film.
You just want a bit more, don't you? You're waiting for some kind of drama. Or like when the little boy did run off, you kind of want, an arrow to come shooting over the mountain and for somebody to be over there. You're kind of waiting for that Western fight.
Yeah. Is it in Buster Scruggs, the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, where they just see the Native Americans gathering on the hill? I was just waiting for that shot and then them all running towards them. Yeah. But it's interesting because you sent a screenshot of the Rotten Tomatoes score and the IMDb score, like the viewers score, and one was like 86% and the viewers was like 53%. So it's interesting how the casual viewer, as opposed to the critic, took it in a completely different way.
Yeah, I found it fascinating. I picked a few films for us to potentially look at, and this was one of the ones that kept cropping up on kind of modern contemporary westerns, like in a top 10 list. And then all the reviews are very good. Unfortunately, I didn't look at the kind of IMDb score to compare it at the time, but as I was watching it, I was like, okay, maybe we'll just have a nosy at that. I think it's the reverence for those old Western films and the classic genre that I think a lot of the kind of the reviews are taken on board, and the reviewers are taken on board with, and they're kind of like, "Ooh, look at it! It looks nice." And remember those good old westerns we used to watch. Remember those good old times. It reminds me of that, but it's not quite that. It's obviously it offers up this new flavour and this new take, but I'm not sure if those two worlds gel as well as we would want them to within this film.
Yeah, you wanted the graphic violence, didn't you?
A little, yeah. I think there are certain expectations, like Hannah said, like you've said, there are certain expectations we have from a Western, and I feel like I was a little bit shortchanged by this film in regards to those tropes. Like a lot of these Western films are very much game changers and tell a different story and go in a different way and are controversial because of that. But I feel like this one's been heralded, like the reviewers have heralded it, but everybody else seems to not be so keen on the vast kind of discrepancy between those two kind of worlds. Which is something I felt while watching the film. One
of the last modern westerns I watched was Bone Tomahawk. Have you seen that with Kurt Russell?
Yeah.
Most violent western film I think I've ever seen. If anybody's not watched it, please put it on. It's supremely violent. And the Native Americans are like almost cannibals. I mean, it doesn't paint them good way at all, but like it's
man's got to eat.
Yeah. Oh, it's brilliant. It's absolutely fantastic.
They're almost they're almost depicting in that film like they're demons, like there's something other, not even human. And I think there's a bit in that film where they're not even, all the other tribes have discommunicated, the uncommunicado, because they're so violent and evil. Yeah, I love that. Kurt Russell and who else was it? Patrick Wilson, I think, was in it.
Yeah, it has the most violent opening shot I have ever seen in my life. It sets the tone. I won't describe how it opens, but it is the most horrific thing I've ever seen open a movie.
Yes, it is all of those things. And where this film doesn't deliver on the stuff that we want, Bone Tomahawk definitely does. On all the violence, on all the action, on all the moral ambiguity. It's a unique film. I kind of wish I'd watched that now.
Yeah, we'll watch that this weekend, Hannah. You'll enjoy that.
But there was a really great moment in the film where I genuinely was on the edge of my seat, and it built up all of this, like, what's going to happen? And it's when they had to kind of slowly edge the wagons down the steep hill with the rope. Now, for something so simple, Nathan said, actually, I always wondered how they managed to do that. So it was insightful. But at the same time, like, it was like the suspense that scene built. And, you know, they got 2 down and it was the third one. And when it went wrong, I was genuinely like, oh my God! It was, my heart broke for them. Like, what are they going to do?
There's going to be people listening to this podcast and hearing us talking about the most exciting bit in it is when they're lowering wagons down a hill and somebody's just thinking, nope, I'll give that a miss.
But, you know, like, credit where credit's due. The fact that film can make that moment so, you know, so spectacular in there.
A highlight, the absolute highlight. And again, this is coming like 2/3 through the film. Like, it's almost over, and we're getting this like high point of tension. And when really it probably should be winding its way to the end. We've just, you know, and Anna's right. It was quite like it grabbed me as well when it started slipping. They're all like, oh, you know. I thought for a second that the carriage was going to roll into the little boy. I thought he was down there, and the carriage was going to roll into the little boy. And I was like, yes, finally something's happening. I mean, you know, obviously, I don't condone child murder, but at least something interesting would have happened.
Just give me one death, just one.
Just one. But yeah, I just couldn't get into it, the film on the whole. I did really try. I went in with fresh eyes and just tried to absorb it and take it in. And it just kind of, like we've said, it kind of just doesn't deliver on the things you wanted to deliver on. And I kind of felt like I was on that journey for a bit. I felt like I was doing, I was just like, okay, here we go. Just long, like even the positive reviewers will use terms like slow, long, being patient with this film, and I'm like, that's a good review. This is a positive review, and you're using all these words. I'm like, slow burn and things like that. And I don't mind a good, slow burn. I'm a big fan of like Halloween's a really slow burn, but I love that movie. But this I just felt like. You see all these rudimentary tasks being done, these banal kind of like washing the pots, washing the clothes. And I was just like, it's probably been more interesting if I actually did one of those things.
You know that a film is somewhat lacking when, for the first hour of it, the thing that you're really thinking about is, I bet they're really smelling those clothes. Also, how did you keep that dress so pink? And I was looking at the stitching on the dresses as well, and thought, I wonder how they did that.
Gosh, I read one review about the bonnets, and they were talking about, normally, these old Western films, the bonnets would never cover the face, but in this one, they are definitely covering up the faces and causing shadow, and you can't see what they're feeling. I'm like. That's not that interesting. I'd rather see their face and their expression and what's going on, like, personally. But
I am very interested in seeing some more of her films, though.
Yeah.
And seeing how... There was one which we were going to watch the other night, which I didn't realise was her, about Jesse Eisenberg being a environmentalist who's going to commit some sort of, like, environmental crime.
Is that Night Moves? Is that the one?
I think, yeah.
Night Moves, yeah. I saw that one. That one I'm more familiar with than this. But like I've still not seen it, but I've heard of it at least. But
yeah, so I will actually give some of her words, Nathan. I will give some of her other movies a chance, because every director has those kind of weird slow burners. I don't take that as a blimp on her career.
I mean, I think we all like to try something different, don't we? Like, even directors like to go outside their comfort zones, which is good. And, you grow and become a better artist for that. But then sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. And I feel like maybe the Western genre is probably not for Kelly Reichardt in regards to filmmaking.
Yeah.
True that.
True. Should we talk about the ending of the film? Because I don't think we can really talk about
Spoiler alert.
Spoilers to this film that we didn't much enjoy. Here's the end. So,
ending? What ending?
and that's the thing. We're struggling through this thing where we're watching them do all these kind of chores and watching them do all these things, and they're traveling, they're getting sunburned, they're running out of water. There's no real kind of really exciting moments apart from maybe the standoff and the wagon falling down the hill. We get to the end, so the Native American is still leading the way. Everyone is. I mean, did that one guy die of thirst?
Well, he was, on death's door, wasn't he? He fainted, and then he was then put inside the wagon, and that was right at the end. So you think, oh, is he going to make it? But then that was
nothing.
Yeah,
it's like
the American sang a song for him, and then he, But I think at that point as well, you could feel the travelers warm towards the Native American because they could see that he's trying to give a prayer or something along those lines.
Yeah, they could tell that there was something going on. But then we have all this. We've had all this tension throughout. We've got there, and we're right at the end of the film. And I'm genuinely shocked at the way this film ended after all that. They go, okay, this is the turning point. They go, right, we can either turn back now or we have to go on. Like, this is it. And they're like, there's no way we can turn back now. We have no idea. We don't know where we'll end up if we turn back. We can only move forward. They all decide we'll move forward, but what if he's leading us to danger? What if he's not leading us to water? And they go, and they turn to Stephen Meek throughout this whole thing. They've like treated him like garbage. And they go, what do you think? And he's like, well, it's already written. It's already, so it's already gonna. This has already been. This is your story now. I've got nothing to do with it. So do whatever you want. And then they look back at the Native American, and he just walks into the distance.
And we see him walking for about a minute, don't we?
Yeah. And I went. I went to myself. I went. They're going to end it here, aren't they? They're going to end it here. And then they did. And I went, yeah, I can't believe you've done that. I can't believe it ended this film like this after almost, it's hour and 40 minutes of practically not much at all. As beautiful as it looked, there wasn't really much that happened. There was not much character development. It's not been that many kind of big incidents or set pieces. And then they just go, well, it ends. This is it.
The road to nowhere.
He was a real person, wasn't he, Stephen Meek? He was actually a real sort of tracker person. So maybe some of that came in there. They couldn't really have him have a gunfight with...
Yeah, possibly, yeah.
Maybe they were just being true to his name.
But then he wasn't like a nice guy, so I don't see why you have to honour him in that way. I think,
Yeah.
I just felt like if they're gonna like, fair enough, it's based on history. There's but you can still tell a fictional story within a historic framing. Look at Titanic, for example. Jack and Rose didn't exist, but the whole Titanic went down. Still tells a good story, like it or not. It's still it's a complete tale, and you can kind of believe it within the historical framework.
Not one bear attack, not one snake bite. Fair enough. There could have been. There didn't need to be a massive gunfight, but
no.
I thought nature or something was going to attack them.
Yeah, like something, even a rock slide or something. And there was that, just anything. Literally, let everything happen.
The hair, the women's hair, all looked like washed. I don't know how many days they've been in that desert for, but the hair looked washed, and they were not greasy, not sweaty after being in those bonnets. Really, really kind of well groomed, really.
Yeah, it doesn't really. I just
didn't add up. I didn't believe it.
Nothing added up. Like like we said, we just want anything to happen. Just anything at all would have been good. But just, Like even the
I'd love
bit.
to see Michelle Williams looking rough. Like, will that ever happen? That would have given me something.
I just want to see
Bad skin and a really greasy hair.
filthy,
But no,
greasy,
it looks
spotty,
great.
acne, all of that. Just get all of that.
Yeah.
I've got there's nothing. I've got nothing really against the actors in it because I think they did the best with what they had. I remember you guys commented on the sound and struggling to hear a lot of the dialogue. It almost reminded me of those kind of like mumblecore movies.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, when it's just like
what's his face? His name's gone out of my head now. This is embarrassing. Mickey Rourke, Bumblefish and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and there's kind of there's an indie kind of I don't know, film genre, which is like just the kind of very realistic kind of mumbling that happens. And it kind of reminded me about that. But I feel like everything in the film, every sound effect, everything else that was happening was 100% louder than the actors themselves. Like even the crickets, at one point in the film, the crickets are louder than the dialogue. And I'm thinking, why? Why do we need to hear this crickets? The only thing I can think of is that she wanted, the director Kelly Reichardt wanted us to feel like the Wild West was relentless and it was encroaching on their lives and it was slowly killing them. And that's why of the power of the West had over them, the Wild West. That's the only thing I can think of. But for me, I just couldn't hear anything, so it started to frustrate me. We've all worked in the theatre. We all know when an audience can't hear you, they start to turn off, they start to get annoyed, and then they leave and they'll give you a bad review. That's what happens. So same in films for me. If I can't hear anything, not that the dialogue was massively important, I don't think, but I mean, I don't know. I couldn't hear it, so I wonder. But,
would you rather watch Will Smith's Wild Wild West or Meek's Cutoff?
What a good question.
You should ask this after every film.
This is my new question. I'll go this or Wild Wild West or this and Meek's Cutoff. Would I give them Meek's Cutoff as an option or would I give them Wild West as an option?
Not after they've heard this podcast.
Well, I'm going to say Meek's Cutoff because it's not very long.
Okay, we'll give it that. It is not very long, but it did feel long.
Afternoon if you want to take a nap kind of film.
Yeah. Waking back up. Oh no, they're still on the planes.
Not missed anything.
There's a bit in the film where Stephen Meek's talking about the Native Americans because obviously he hates them all, wants to kill them all. Very racist guy, and he's like, "Oh, I know what they do to people. They cut people's eyelids off, stick them in the ground, dig a hole for them, leave their head exposed, and force them to stare at the sun." And I kind of felt like I was enduring that a little bit towards the end of the film. I was like, okay, this is again a bit much. I'm probably being a bit too harsh, but I was just very disappointed from what I'd heard and come back from that. Yeah, just very disappointing.
For people that are fans of Westerns.
Exactly right. I think you've hit the nail on the head, Hannah. It's just not what you come to expect, but it doesn't even flip the genre in a good way or help you re-examine the genre. It just kind of goes, there's this, and I'm trying to glue it together to this, and the glue doesn't hold, sadly. That's the film for me. I don't know if you guys have any more comments on the acting or the filmmaking.
I think if you're studying to become a filmmaker and you're looking at sort of examples of films with really interesting shots and different camera angles, which are a little bit maybe experimental, for popular cinema, I think it's a really good film to watch.
Yeah, I think visual, like Hannah said, it is visually very strong. I think the cinematography is good, and it's nice to watch. But I think I would kind of just have it as like a screensaver more so than because we've talked about this. It's minimal. There's not much plot. There's not much going on. There's not much inciting incidents, and then it kind of just fades away. I think I'll more than likely forget this quite soon. I think. If
anybody does decide to watch it as their Sunday afternoon nap time film, close your eyes, and Stephen Meek sounds like Duffman.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
He does a little bit. I like the actor Bruce Greenwood as well. I think he's a great. He played
Got a great voice.
Yeah, he has got a good voice. He played Batman, unsurprisingly, in like one of the animated movies they do, and Young Justice, and he's very good. He's very, very good as a.
Every time I seem to see him in something, he's always like head of the department or in charge of sort of, or like a mentor or something. He's in Star Trek, isn't he?
That's right. The Kelvin verse Star Trek. He's Captain Pike, I think he is. Who's in the continuity as the original, Enterprise captain. But yeah, I think he's good. I think Michelle Williams is very good in this as well. I think she has a very commanding presence. She holds the screen, and she's the only character I feel that has the development. I think everybody else is kind of, Paul Dano's just the cowardly young guy, and his wife's the panic-stricken, just panicked about everything. The husband to Michelle Williams is pretty ineffectual. Even when the standoff is happening, he's like, "Look at your wife there," and he's like, "Yeah, that's my wife." Doesn't help, doesn't calm the situation down. Yeah, he's just like, yeah, that's. But he's not even like he's not even cheering her on really. He's just going, "That's my wife."
Got this.
Yeah. She's holding a gun, but who cares? And again, like even at that point, like that height of tension when all the guns are pointed, everyone's just like, I'm just going to awkwardly look away, just awkwardly look at the ground while all this is going on. Not going to get involved or say anything, even though our lives are literally on the line. We're just gonna just not do anything, just non-committal, non-actioned, nothing. We're just gonna stand here. And then, and again, film ends shortly after that.
Do you know on that Simpson episode where Homer goes to see Mel Gibson's adaptation of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington?
Yes.
He's kind of like bored, but everybody else finds it brilliant. And Homer's really upset that there's no graphic violence in it. And then they redo it, and it ends with like an absolute killing spree. I feel a little bit like Homer Simpson.
Yes, I you know what? That is the perfect analogy for this film. I just want to go in and like shake it up, edit it, do something. It reminds me. You often say like, somebody throw a pie. I think I'm like, somebody fire a gun or shoot an arrow or encounter a dangerous animal, please. Something, anything. But yeah, that's Meek's Cutoff. I've looked on IMDb for any kind of interesting facts or anything, but there's nothing.
None.
It's like it's a minimalist western with minimalist fun and interesting facts. I kind of wish we had more to say about this, but also I kind of wish we'd probably watch something else.
Next time, let's do it again, and let's go for something really action-packed.
Oh yes. You know what? I'll even let you guys choose because I don't want that responsibility to fall on my head again.
Right, leave it with us.
I definitely will. Yeah, I think we're all done, guys. You anything else you want to say before we go?
Bone Tomahawk is absolutely brilliant. If anybody's looking for a good Western, a modern Western, watch that, although it is incredibly violent. Yes. And of course, watch Deadwood, because that's one of the best television series. Hannah, do you have any Western recommendations?
Well, if you want to go onto Spotify, there's a great album that you can listen to. Is it
It's Westernized, the official soundtrack.
I'm on that soundtrack.
You certainly are.
Yes, you are, Dan.
I am. If you need any context, I'm happy. If you need any context for that particular song, I'm happy to provide it at any point. Yes, but where can everyone find you guys on social media? That's what's most important. Death by Pie and your personal accounts, if you want, whichever ones you want to give out.
You find me at Hannah Hobley. That's HANNAHHOBLEY. That's for Twitter and Instagram.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram under @NathRichSmith. I won't spell that out because I'll get it wrong. And you can find our theatre company Death by Pie on @DeathByPieCo. And that's on both Instagram and Twitter.
I just remembered, Hannah, as well. Obviously, you're a big star of Benidorm back in the day when you're on that, and I watched the first 3 episodes the other week.
You really?
I did. Me and our mutual friend Natalie. I said, I'd never seen it, and she was like, right, what's going on? So we watched the first 3 episodes. And,
maybe we can talk about that sometime, Dan.
You've got a great reveal in that first episode. Like you've got the best part in that because it finishes with that cliffhanger.
I've got the EastEnders moment, haven't I?
You do.
Oh yeah, very. And I was like, and like you're so young in it as well. You're almost unrecognizable. I was like, is that Hannah? Is that
Hey,
Hannah?
look, well, maybe we should get together and do a Benidorm podcast at some point.
Could do. I'm up for that. But the second I recognised you is when you started singing. I was like, there she is. She's come out to play. But it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it actually.
Very good.
I wasn't sure if it'd be my cup of tea, but I did actually get quite into it, and that's why we watched 3 episodes until Andy walked in and said, "Right, turn that off."
He did actually message us saying, like, put Benidorm on.
Of course he did. That was Natalie's choice. I was just there for the ride. So fantastic. Well, you can find Spider Dan at the Secret Balls. You can find us on Facebook. So that's @Secret Balls on Facebook. Twitter, it's @Dan_balls. Instagram, it's Spider Dan Secret Balls, all one word. And the podcast's available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube, and many, many more. And if you'd like to donate towards the podcast, you can buy me a coffee at ko-fi.com/SpiderDan and the Secret Balls. And don't forget to use the hashtag #PrepareForPrattle when you interact with us. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for coming with me on this long journey, this long, troublesome journey of washing pots and cleaning clothes, and the exciting times we've had. I just remembered as well, they find a bit of gold, don't they?
Completely goes.
And then they move on from it.
And I was like, oh, great, they're going to go gold hunting. But no, just throw that away. It's a bit of gold. It's real. Oh, great. No, let's just carry on the boring journey we're making. And our boring journey has come to an end. So goodbye, everybody. Thank you very much, Hannah and Nathan. And hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.